In this video, we want to do a little background on a major figure in Roman history, Marcus Tullius Cicero. So you're going to want to take notes on this. By all means, feel free to pause. We're going to have some text pop up in the video, and if you need to make sure you get that, pause that, get your notes, and then obviously continue on. But Cicero is one of the most important figures from ancient Roman history. He's a major focus for us in third year Latin. So we want to start off with his dates. He lived from 106 to 43 BC, which really puts him at the same time as Julius Caesar. So we're going to start his life off in the fact that he was born south of Rome, in a town called Arpinum, capital Arpinum. He was the son of what we call a fuller, Fuller, which was a person who was a professional toga cleaner, basically like we have professional cleaners today. So he really did not grow up in upper class. In fact, he was a member of the equestrians, which you may recall is a branch of the plebeian social class. We're going to then really pick his life up here. At 88 BC, he studied rhetoric under a guy named Molo on the island of Rhodes. And this would have been the equivalent of studying, say, like physics and math at MIT. Molo was the best teacher of rhetoric, and really for ancient Roman young men, rhetoric was what you wanted to study, so that you could become a great public speaker, then become a lawyer, and advance your way through the cursus honorum, the ladder of elected office. In 80 BC, he defended a guy named Roscius, and this was really important because this was during the reign of terror under the dictator Sulla. And we've talked about Sulla before, but Sulla was a fearsome guy. Everybody was afraid during his reign. And he had proscription lists of people to be killed, posted around the Roman Forum. Well, one of Sulla's friends wanted another man's land. So what he did was he killed this guy and then put his name on the proscription list to make it seem legal to get this guy's land. Well, the guy's son was naturally upset about this and hired Cicero to defend him. And Cicero did. And kind of put that in perspective. Think back to the 1930s, and it would be like defending someone in court against a friend of Adolf Hitler. So this is a pretty bold thing for Cicero to do. He won the case, and it really established him as a great public speaker. Then in 77, he married his wife Terentia, and a year later, saw the birth of his daughter, his only daughter, Tullia. She was the absolute apple of his eye, loved her tremendously. The following year, he began the cursus honorum, beginning that by being elected quaestor. That was the first step on the cursus honorum. And you were basically a financial sort of officer there in charge of Roman finances. About 10 years later, he got elected praetor, the next step up on the cursus honorum. Praetores were judges. They were in charge of the judicial system in Rome. And the following year saw the birth of his only son, a young man named Marcus, whom he obviously named after himself. Then we get to 64 BC, and this was big because he got elected consul along with Gaius Antonius Hybrida for the following year of 63 BC. And that's going to be a really, really big year for Cicero. In fact, so big, we've got a separate video on that. We're going to have that linked here for you, and you definitely want to check that out separately. So I'm not going to even really say anything more about the year 63. That deserves its own video. After his year of consulship, some things went bad for him. Between 58 and 57 BC, he was exiled from Rome by his political enemy, Publius Clodius Pulcher. For a guy like Cicero, this was horrible to be kicked out of Rome. And eventually he was brought back by the Senate. The Senate voted for him to be able to return. But he was never really quite the same after that. He was quite devastated by that. In 49 BC, he joined the side of Pompey against Caesar in the Civil War. Caesar and Cicero. Caesar kind of liked Cicero, but Cicero never really seemed to be on the side of Caesar. And so he sided with Pompey in the Civil War, which obviously Pompey's side lost. Caesar did pardon Cicero later. In 46 BC, he divorced his wife Terentia and turned around and married a young woman named Publilia. And in 45, he turned around and divorced Publilia. He realized that was a terrible mistake, and then same year saw the death of his beloved daughter Tullia. And then in 43 BC, he was actually murdered on the Appian Way, the main road leading southeast out of Rome. This was during the proscriptions of Marcus Antonius. We'd mentioned him. I know we've talked about him in class. Marcus Antonius couldn't stand Cicero, wanted him to be put on the proscription list. Some of Antonius's men caught up with Cicero. They cut off his head, they cut off his hands, and they nailed his head and his hands to the speaker's platform in the Roman Forum. So a very grisly end to this famous Roman. Some other things you want to know about Cicero. Cicero was famous as a statesman. That's really what he was known for. Fabulous style of writing and public speaking. In fact, that's part of the reason we're going to be focusing so much on him this year, as studying his style of writing and how he speaks. And it really is somebody who's going to benefit you, who knows what sort of speeches you might need to give in life. And so many people over the last 2,000 years have really honed their speaking craft based on Cicero. He also wrote some private letters. We're going to get a look into his private life. And he also wrote quite a bit of philosophy as well. So you want to make sure you get those sort of details in your notes. Again, you do want to watch that video about the year 43 BC. And that, my friends, is an overview of the life of Cicero.